Welcome to Conquering the Glass Ceiling, the show where not only women can be empowered to find their seat at the table, but they can find their voice at the table as well. I'm your host, Dr. Cortney Baker, and I believe when we have our confidence in our worth and our value as women, then we will achieve gender equality. Conquering the Glass Ceiling not only empowers you, but will bring also key individuals to inspire and empower you to conquer your own glass ceiling, whatever it may be. And in a moment, you and I will be joined by my special guest, Debbie Sardone, the entrepreneur, philanthropist, and speaker. And Debbie will share with us her key insights on how to bring success into significance, how to monetize free speaking engagements, and how to leverage time. But first, I want to say thank you to our sponsor who doesn't know they're our sponsor yet, Whataburger. I'm so excited today to have my special guest, Debbie Sardone, who is a friend of mine, but she's also just an incredible businesswoman. Thank you so much for joining us, and tell the listeners a little bit about your background.
Thank you for having me,
Sure.
Courtney. I just love talking with you whenever we do get together.
Thank you.
My background is a little different than a lot of people's. I started cleaning houses out of the trunk of my car years ago when I quit work to have a baby. And I was just making fun money at the time. And then the thing kept growing and growing. And eventually I realized I had one of the largest maid services in the country. I became the president of an association for residential cleaning businesses. I became an absentee owner. My business has grossed over $25 million over the last 25 years. And then in 2006, because of the success of my business, I was able to launch a nonprofit.
Oh, tell us more about that. And I want to get back into you've given us so many nuggets. Like first, and I feel like we could go through so many episodes just on this alone, but how did you build your company to be an absentee owner and really build your team?
You know, back when I started, I didn't have a business plan. I didn't have any money. I was just cleaning houses to make income. But I did have drive and integrity and a really strong work ethic. And I was a chronic learner. I was obsessed with reading books and learning. And so in the early days, as I was trying to figure it out and trying to build a great business, I did a lot of things wrong, but I did a lot of things right. And I sought out the help of consultants and mentors. And eventually, I built a self-running business, which is not so easy when it's a labor-intense business, when you have lots of people to manage. And so, obviously, it took me years to get there, but I became an absentee owner about 10 years ago, shortly after I started my nonprofit, and I began to do full-time consulting. So now I work with maid service business owners, people who own cleaning businesses. I work with those people all around the world to help them achieve success and significance in their business, financial freedom, wealth, quality of life, all of the things that so many entrepreneurs struggle to achieve. I get to do that every single day full time as an absentee owner.
And so you still own your company?
I do. I never sold it.
Okay.
A lot
What's
of
the
people,
name of it?
The company is located in Louisville, so we service the North Dallas area, Flower Mound, Highland Village area, and we are Buckets and Bows Maid Service.
I love it.
So you can tell that's an older name. Obviously, I came up with that name 35 years ago. But as a result of being able to create a self-running business that's based entirely on systems and processes and objective standards that can be duplicated over and over, you know, scaled to a larger business. Because I was able to achieve that, that gave me the freedom and the time and the financial freedom to be able to launch a nonprofit and to build a full-time consulting business. Now I get to work out of my home half the time in my pajamas.
That is success right there. So tell me about your nonprofit.
The nonprofit is just so near and dear to my heart. In 2006, I took what started as a company policy, and I launched it nationwide and formed a nonprofit, a 501c3-6. I began to recruit maid services all over the country. Fast forward now, it's been about 12 years. We have 1,200 cleaning companies in the program, and we have provided women who have cancer, 28,000 women who are battling cancer, with the gift of free house cleaning. So it's grown in the 12 years since it started.
Now, how did that really where did the seed for that come from?
I was working in my office, and I took a call from a woman one day, just like I normally would, like any business owner does, and she was inquiring about pricing for cleaning her home. And I gave her a quote, just, I was in business mode, and she said, "Oh, I can't afford that right now. I'm not working. I'm going through chemotherapy and radiation. Maybe when I get back to work, I'll hire you guys." And she hung up. This was before the days of caller ID. I had no way to call her back, and I made a decision that day based on a missed opportunity that would never happen again. So I met with my staff, and I said, if you ever get a call and I'm not here, you're authorized, if she has cancer and can't afford our service, to give her the cleaning for free. Wow. So it just started as an internal company policy, kind of one of those best kept secrets. And eventually, as I matured as a business and I began speaking professionally to maid service at conferences for maid services, that is where I recognize that other cleaning companies around the country would like to do the same if we could just make it easy for them and vet the patients, screen the patients, and create a process to where they could contribute locally to women who have cancer. So that's really where the whole idea started.
I love it. And it's with cancer, and do they have to be in a certain stage, or?
No, it's any woman battling any type of cancer.
Okay.
And so it's not breast cancer only, it's any woman who is currently in treatment. So the only qualification is that she submit a doctor's note that simply says she is currently in treatment, and she would qualify if we have a local participating maid service in her community.
That is so wonderful. I love hearing stories about successful people really giving back where it counts. And we all know what success looks like, but talk to me about significance and what that means to you.
I think true success has elements of significance, sometimes a little bit of significance, sometimes a whole lot. But I think for entrepreneurs to truly feel successful in their business endeavors, it doesn't stop with achieving financial goals. It stops with doing the things you always dreamed you could do and want to do. And so many entrepreneurs don't reach a level of success where they can afford to give back, or they can afford to volunteer, or they have the time to give back and volunteer. So success starts with creating a business that's thriving, that financially is where you had always hoped it would be, and creating freedom and quality of life around that business. Because there's a lot of business owners that their business might be successful, but it runs their life. Right. And so they don't run their business runs them. And it's very hard to feel significant when you're exhausted and you're working 70, 80 hours a week to keep your business alive or to grow it to the next level. So I believe a part of significance is creating the business and realizing the business you always thought you should be able to do financially, personally, and then in a way that you are able to give back, whether it's through volunteerism or financial support.
So how would you give advice to how to attain that if you are right now like working in your business, on your business, breathing, living, eating, sleeping your business? How would you give advice to someone who's there?
I believe most entrepreneurs are exactly as you described. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. A speaking business is a full-time career, or running a service business is a full-time career. And I believe most successful entrepreneurs have put themselves in a position of running themselves ragged in order to succeed. I believe the very first step to realizing things could be different is understanding that if your business requires you to work 70, 80 hours a week, 6 or 7 days a week, and to give up quality of life, you're probably doing something wrong. It isn't just, well, that's the way it is if you want to succeed. Too many people have settled for that. Too many entrepreneurs think, well, that's what being an entrepreneur is. If you want to be successful, you have to grind it out forever. And realizing that's actually a myth, that when you discover there is a better way, and one book I recommend to all entrepreneurs, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, is The E-Myth by Michael Gerber, and that's M-Y-T-H. So The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. And that will open most entrepreneurs' eyes to the fact that too many times we create a new job for ourselves. We are not necessarily building a business. We own a job. And we are the one answering the phones and making the sales and figuring the payroll and entering the data and emptying the trash cans. And we're doing all of this stuff because we don't know how to turn everything in our business into a process and a system that other people can follow with your direction. So that's one of the things, is realizing if I'm working this hard, there's probably a better way. That's the first step to making a change.
Well, and I think so many people have trouble with delegation. And my husband says I'm a great delegator, which I'm like, I don't know if I should be offended by that.
No, that's a huge compliment. That's a huge compliment. One of the things that I teach entrepreneurs, most of the time they're cleaning business owners, is done is better than perfect. And so many entrepreneurs, especially the ones who started out as the technician in their business, they were the ones doing the therapy and now they have therapists doing it. Or they were the ones babysitting and now they have a big daycare or whatever. They were the ones cutting the hair and now they own a thriving salon. And the most successful entrepreneurs understand that done is better than perfect. And when you started out doing the work, you tend to be a perfectionist. When you're a perfectionist, you undermine your ability to take your business to the next level because you're hanging on to that perfectionism and it can almost never be duplicated.
Right.
Nobody can do it better than you. Nobody can do it better than me. And so it makes it very hard to delegate. But when you realize you don't have to trade perfection for sloppy or mediocre, because that's what we all think, oh my goodness, my competition is sloppy or mediocre, and this is why I'm successful. If you realize, no, it's not an either or, sloppy, mediocre, or perfection, there's another standard, and it's called excellence. This is when you abandon perfection, you embrace excellence, and you create systems and processes around excellence, and you begin to teach others how to follow your system, and that's when you begin to delegate.
I love that. And you also, I know now you were talking about you've gone into consulting and speaking. Tell us, really, because as a speaker, I understand that so many people want us to speak for free. And, you know, when you're speaking, you're not speaking, you're sharing your wisdom and your knowledge. And I really love that you have made the ability to monetize your speaking engagements for free speaking engagements. So tell us more about that.
Here's the thing. Most people have a message. Most people who want to be speakers have a message deep inside of them that they just feel like has to be shared. Whether it's a business message, and I have so many struggling entrepreneurs I can help, or it's a social message. And so often speakers have this incredible knowledge deep inside of them, and they can't figure out how to monetize that knowledge. Oftentimes it's business knowledge and business wisdom, and they get invited to speak for free. And at a certain point, that's great. That's a great way to build your platform. It's a great way to refine your skills. But once you've spoken for free enough times and you feel like, okay, I've nailed it, I should be paid for these gigs, the frustration is when you cannot make the leap from constantly being invited to speak for free to being paid what you believe you're worth. And I think one of the problems is the audience. When you agree to speak to an audience that is not the absolute perfect niche for you, it's less likely that you'll monetize it. When you speak to an audience or to audiences that are perfectly suited to what you know, and the knowledge that you have, your depth of knowledge can go deeper than any competing speaker for a keynote. And I'll give you an example. In the world of speaking, I'm a good speaker. I can do a keynote and I could be paid for it and no one would feel like they were ripped off. But I'm competing with hundreds and thousands of professional speakers who command top fees who will probably win the gigs because I don't have that amount of experience and exposure. But when I speak to my niche, the maid service community, I'm in the top of my field. There isn't a better speaker who could come in and nail my subject matter, my content. I don't even have to be the most dynamic speaker in the room as long as I have the deepest level of content. So often the speaker or the keynote, their knowledge is a mile wide and an inch deep in a specific industry. Whereas if you can define your industry, the industry that you could help better than anybody in the world, and in my case, it's maid services. My information that I can share in a keynote or a workshop is not only a mile wide, but it's a mile deep. I can speak on any topic that a cleaning business owner is struggling with, from employee retention to attracting the right employees to standardizing your cleanings, which, that's a subjective thing right there, to training your employees, to raising your prices, to charging what you're worth. All of those topics, I can go a mile deep. Whereas a competing speaker, a generalist, could do a great job in terms of delivery, but they wouldn't be able to go as deep. So here's how you monetize that. If you're invited to speak to your perfect audience, make sure you have a product that they can take advantage of afterwards. Because a free keynote that maybe lasts 40 minutes, what possibly could you share in 40 minutes that will change their life and transform their business? You can't. But you can help sow the seed that I have the information that will change your life and will transform your business. And when they see that, they will be coming to you after your speech saying, what can I buy from you? Do you have a training course? Do you have CDs? Do you have DVDs? Do you have a mastermind group? They will be asking for that when you're in front of the right audience. And so you can monetize a free speech. I did that in the early days when I started speaking about 10 years ago. Back then, we all had CDs. So I would speak on a topic for about 40 minutes, but then I would have a set of CDs back then, everything now is digital, that would go deeper by about 6 hours of training on that topic that I could only hit the high points in 40 minutes. I would sell out of my product. I would turn a free speaking gig back then into a $5,000, $6,000, $7,000, $8,000 event.
And I think it's a product or a service. And now that you have consulting services, you also are able to monetize through offering that.
Exactly. So when I first started, even before I had the product, once I began to get in demand, so at first I was speaking for free and I just enjoyed it and I was learning as a speaker and I was learning how to deliver my message in a more concise way. But over time, people would call me up and they would ask, Debbie, could I hire you for one-on-one consulting? You know more about my business than I do. And at first, I would do consulting for free. And I do believe that's where it starts for most successful consultants. You give and give. And I would be like, no, you don't have to pay me. Let me help you through this. And we'd talk for an hour and I'd help them through it. And they would hang up and they would say things like, oh my goodness, this is going to make all the difference in the world. And I would get emails weeks or months later, you're not going to believe the transformation that's taken place. And so over time, after consulting for free, I didn't have enough time to give away my time. And so at that point, it's like, if I'm going to help more people who are going to follow through, because some of them, thanks for the free advice and do nothing.
Right.
We've all been there.
Yes.
If I'm going to help the people who need me the most, I need to make sure I have the time to help them. And that's when I began charging. So it really started with, okay, I can help you. I'm sorry, I just don't have any more time for free consults. But if you would like some one-on-one consulting. This was almost 10 years ago. I started at $200 an hour. Now, because I have learned to leverage my time even further, and we can talk about that in a little bit, I won't do consulting for $200 an hour. I don't have enough time in my day. If I even do one-on-one consulting, which I've abandoned long ago, I prefer not to, but sometimes you have to, I'm $500 an hour. And so it started out as a one-to-one hourly process. But over time, if you're good within your niche and you are transforming lives, people will spread the word. You'll get so busy you can't even handle the demand of one-on-one coaching. And I woke up one day and I realized, oh my goodness, I'm working by the hour again, right? Just like when I cleaned houses 35 years ago, I'm like, okay, I'm working by the hour. People might be paying me $200, $250 an hour, but I don't want to spend 8 hours a day talking on the phone.
Right.
And that's when I said, okay, it's time to leverage my time and take my consulting one-on-one business to the next level.
Well, tell us how you did that and
Okay.
what more about that.
Well, everything is incremental, right? Success is incremental. So many people will look at a business like yours, you're a highly successful woman, and they'll go, wow, Cortney, she's an overnight success. And you're like, yeah, right. It took me 20 years to be an overnight success. And so consulting and speaking is the same thing. Successes are incremental. It started out by giving my advice away for free, building my credibility, and creating testimonials where it was proof that you should pay me. Then it started out as one-on-one consulting. It went to one-on-one consulting. Then when I got too busy for that or too spoiled because I didn't want to spend my whole day on the phone, I decided the best way to leverage my time is to develop an online training course. And the best place to start with developing an online training course is think about all the questions you answer over and over and over and over and over again in all your consulting appointments. And especially if you micro niche, which is what I suggest people do, if you really want to be the highest paid consultant, micro niche. The broader and the more general you are, the cheaper you will be because you have to compete with everybody.
Right.
The more you niche, cleaning industry, and micro niche, residential cleaning business owners struggling to get out of the field, get out from behind the mop and build something great, that's a micro niche. The more respected you'll be in your industry if you are amazing at what you claim you can help them with. And so at a certain point, I realized all these questions I'm helping people with because of my micro niche are the same.
Right.
Now, if I could coach, consult other businesses. I have helped people that had an automotive business and a marketing business and restaurant business. I have consulted those people, but I can't say that I would be the best in that field.
Right.
For teaching them how to run a better restaurant or make a better profit in the automotive. I can't say that. But I can in the maid service space.
And if you did that, you would be going your mile wide.
You're back
and
to
not,
a mile
right.
wide instead of a mile wide and a mile deep. And that's where I think consultants struggle financially is they're trying to be all things to everybody because they have this big, great, broad knowledge of business. And I could help anybody in the service business, but I can be the best in the maid service space. And so I choose to only work with that group. And here's why. It makes my job easier. I don't have to research or study 10 different industries I'm consulting with to find out, well, what are their margins? What is their best marketing platform? No, in my niche, I know what their margins should be. I know how to attract the best employees. I know how to train people who clean houses. So I don't even have to reinvent the wheel. I can answer the same questions over and over again. So back to the original question of leveraging my time, I took all those questions I keep answering over and over again in one-on-one consulting, and I built a program, an online training program, to answer those questions, because that was the questions my next one-on-one consult would be asking. And I sold the online training program. That takes about 5 minutes. After you sell the program, you don't have an hour conversation. You send an email.
Yes.
And it's login, self-paced training. And that was how I took, that was one more piece. I have several other pieces, but that's where I took my consulting one-on-one, leverage my time to where I could be 20 to 1. And the first time I launched it, I had 20 people sign up within a month. I had sold 20 packages, and at that time they were $1,600. I sold 20 in one fell swoop. And I thought, you know what? That's a great way to coach 20 people at one time, is to email them a login and let them do the program self-paced. So they didn't have to make an appointment and clear their schedule and talk to me when I was available. They could do it on Saturday afternoon or 10 p.m. at night when the kids were in bed.
Yeah, I love that. So how did you, I mean, really, you've gone from an entrepreneur of being one industry to another entrepreneur of being in a different industry, and there had to have been a learning curve, right? I mean, anytime you're learning a new skill and a new, so who walked you through that? Did you have a mentor?
So, yes, I am a firm believer in hiring consultants and mentors, and I've done this every step of the way in my business. So when I was just trying to build a cleaning business and I was struggling and I hit a brick wall and I was actually going backwards, and I thought, if this continues, I'm going to go out of business. And I was having so much chaos and so much turmoil in my business because it kind of reaches that tipping point where it's out of control, it's too hard to manage, and you either need to get it right and begin to figure out what systems and formulas are missing, or you're going to go under. At that point, I hired consultants. And this was 25 years ago. This was before any of us were using the internet. There were no internet gurus to click and take a training course. I hired consultants out of Chicago, Illinois. To this day, I don't know how I paid for them.
Yeah.
It cost me $40,000. They came in for 2 weeks and turned my business upside down, and we fixed all the broken pieces.
Wow.
Based on, this is what you're not doing right, and this is the system you should have in place, and this is the way you should pay your staff, and this is how you should attract the right people. And with their knowledge and their training and an expense, I to this day don't know how I ever paid it off, but I did. It took me years. It was worth every penny. 9 months later, my business grossed $1 million, which I had struggled for years to get it to. And in my industry, that's the top 2%. For a lot of companies, that's a very small amount. But in the maid service industry, I'm in the top 2% of the nation of any maid service. And I hit the $1 million mark with their advice, and I've been doing that ever since. We've grossed well over $25 million over the last 25 years. I hired mentors to help me fix what I could not figure out on my own.
But I think that what you just said was key. You did what they told you to do.
Exactly.
Because so many people I talk to, I'll guide them, but I'll ask, or they ask me for help, and I'll guide them, and they may or may not take my advice, but I feel like if you asked me and you're paying me, then why are you not implementing? Because
so
honestly,
that's the learning curve.
Yes.
Right there when you said, okay, well, what about the learning curve? Because every business has a learning curve. And so I ran into that same brick wall as a consultant. I would pour my heart into these people. They would pay me $200, $250 an hour, and sometimes our sessions would go an hour and a half, 2 hours. Why? Because I'd spend half my time arguing with them. Some of them, not all of them. There would seem to be a certain behavioral trait in some business owners that some would be like, that sounds interesting. I would never have thought to do that, but I'll try it. Others were like, well, Debbie, let me tell you why I don't think that'll work, or why that won't work in my area, or I think I'm going to change what you just suggested a little bit. And so during the learning curve, I wouldn't defend the position. I would be like, okay, but I'm telling you, I don't think that's a good idea. Over the years, as a consultant, I got very bold. And I would say, you are paying me $250 an hour to give you advice that you're arguing with. If you think you know a better way, save your money. Don't waste either of our time. And so I would begin to get a little bit, always kind and gentle, but very firm. I would push back and say, if you knew a better way, if you could guess your way to success, we wouldn't be on this call. You've already tried and failed numerous times. My recommendation is you don't modify any of my advice. You implement it exactly the way I said. And then, if it doesn't work, come back and I'll give you a free consult. And when I began to push back and just really say, you're paying for something and then you're arguing about it, this is not in your best interest. And I can't help you if I can't teach you. And it did help with some of those, but it also alleviated my own personal pain and frustration when people didn't follow through on my advice and they crashed and burned. Because then I would be able to say, when they would hire me 3 months later and say, everything's a mess, my business is blowing up, and I need a consult, and they would complain about what's not working, I would be able to say, do you remember our last conversation where I said, if you modify this, it won't work? Well, you modified it, and this is why it's not working. And so I'm not trying to rub salt into the wound. I'm trying to help people understand it's not my fault you don't follow my advice. It's your fault. And if you want to be successful, you need to read good books, hire good coaches, and then do what they say.
Well, I agree. And I think that there's got to be such a level of accountability. I mean, you can go through life blaming everybody else for your failures and your lack of success. But at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own success, commitment, follow through, everything.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
Because there seems to be two groups of business owners or two groups of entrepreneurs. Those that believe all of their failures are external. It's the lazy workforce. Nobody in America wants to work hard. It's all the cheap competition. This is why I can't make a profit. My prices, I can't charge enough. You know, there are certain people that believe it's them, it's not me. And then there are people that are like, okay, I must be doing something wrong. What should I change? And then they hire somebody and they take their advice. I spoke with a woman just last week who went on and on. I usually let them talk for several minutes. And she went on and on about this crisis she had a year ago where she lost 6 customers, which amounted to about $50,000 worth of business. And another crisis that happened and another crisis that happened. And I let her go on. And I finally stopped her and I said, okay, do you want the truth or do you just want me to make you feel better and not fix anything? She said, no, I want the truth. And I said, you've just spent about 15 minutes blaming everybody for your business failure and why your business is in the red and why your bank account is overdrawn. And I said, I want to tell you some bad news and some good news. The bad news is it's your fault. But the good news is it's your fault. And if it is your fault, you can fix you. You can change you. If it's not your fault and everything is you're a victim of circumstance, then guess what? You have no control and you can't change a thing. You just have to wait till other things change. And I said, so the good news, the painful side is, oh, darn it, I have to take responsibility for my failures. It's painful. We don't like it.
Right.
But the good news is, if I recognize that all of my business failures are my fault, I'm approaching business incorrectly in various ways, then guess who I can change in this world? And I'm the only person I can change in this world. I can't change other people.
Oh, I love
And
it.
at that point, for the first time, she had hope because she always felt a victim of circumstance. And so therefore, she always felt like success was always a matter of chance. And I said, no, it's a matter of choice. When you choose to do the right things, when you choose to seek information that's missing in your business, knowledge that you need, then you can make the changes and then you'll reap the results.
Did you guys hear that? Success is not a chance, it's a choice. That is a tweetable moment, my friends. Okay, Debbie, thank you so much. Tell me, what is your favorite must-read book besides Unlimited, Conquering the Myth of the Glass Ceiling?
Of course, you got to read that. That's for starters. I did mention The E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's probably my favorite all-time book, but my second favorite all-time book, which is perfect for businesses and even for your children to read, is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. It's very comparable to Darren Hardy's The Compound Effect.
Okay.
It's a little bit lighter read. It is absolutely a must-read for business owners. The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson is about how incremental change, little seemingly insignificant steps that we take in our business, good or bad, will result in massive success or massive failure. So the Slight Edge is all about how incremental steps reach massive results.
Perfect. I love it. Thank you so much for being here with me today. And guys, if you want to get in touch with Debbie and you want to learn more, where can they find you?
You can go to DebbieSardoneTraining.com and get on my email list for when I hold another free workshop, which I will monetize, or if you own a cleaning business and you just need help building a $1 million maid service, get the owner out of the field and build something great, then go to DebbieSardone.com.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. And next, we have a video on leadership, my prescription.
Hey guys, I am at the Little League, I don't even know, where are we? The softball fields.
Yeah.
Yes. And I have Ashley here with me. And
Hi.
Ashley, yes. So tell me, was the best quality of your favorite leader?
Okay. One of my favorite bosses, who I would say she was a leader, so I think there's a difference between a boss and a leader.
Absolutely.
She gave us autonomy. She trusted us to do our job. And if we ever had any question, we felt safe coming to her and asking her. She was very sincere in the way she treated us. She trusted us. And she caused me to just follow her wherever she went, really. I wanted to work for her. It wasn't about the job, it was more about the people I worked with.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so
You're
much.
welcome.
I appreciate it. All right, there's our prescription to lead.
Yay!
Thank you, Ashley, for your wisdom nuggets. Overall, she shared that the best boss really gave her a zone of safety and comfort to share her opinions. And really, that goes hand in hand with what Debbie and I just talked about. When someone is able to take accountability for their own actions and say, oh, I'm sorry I had that effect on you, or this is what happened, and take ownership of their responsibility for their actions, that makes a huge difference. So if you're a boss and you are not creating that zone of safety, then guess what? It's in your hands, and you have the ability to change that starting now. So today our show is over. Thank you so much to my special guest, Debbie Sardone. And that's it. So for more information about me, you can visit my website, CourtneyBaker.com. And don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review our episode, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Thank you so much, guys. See you next week.